Good morning. Welcome to Talkline on the Metro News Radio Network.
Do not attempt to change the station. You are surrounded.
We interrupt this program to bring you an emergency news bulletin. Repeat, this is an emergency bulletin. Keep your radio turned on.
Holy smoke.
From the studios of the West Virginia Radio Corporation and the Metro News Radio Network, the voice of West Virginia, comes the most powerful radio show in West Virginia. This is Metro News Talkline with Hoppy Kercheval.
Check set line up, Blake. Activated Telos telephone. Switch network control from Charleston to Morgantown.
Stand by. Cue Hoppy. You're on.
Good morning. Welcome to Talkline on Metro News in and around the great state. Hoppy Kercheval with you. J.R. Falls, our producer, Matt Sunday with a video stream. You can watch us at wvmetronews.com, at Metro News TV. Coming up this morning, we have a very full agenda. We'll talk with House Speaker Tim Armstead. There's a lot of talk about the possibility of raising the cigarette tax and or trying to find more money for PEIA to try to lessen the impact on PEIA members in West Virginia because of rising costs. So we'll talk with him about that. And also coming up, yes, we will get deeper into what's happening on college campuses. The latest is at Ithaca, New York. I have a little bit different thought on this. I think it goes well beyond political correctness. It goes beyond political correctness, but what is at the root of it here? I read a couple of pieces last night and this morning I want to share with you as time permits. Also coming up this morning, WVU women's soccer coach Nikki Izzo-Brown. They had a fantastic season. They're highly ranked. They're going into the playoffs tomorrow night. We will talk with her. Also, Paige Lavender, WVU graduate, politics editor, senior politics editor of the Huffington Post. She's on a panel in Morgantown today at her alma mater. She'll join us as well. So a lot to do, but let's start with the Don Blankenship trial. Day off yesterday. For Veterans Day, back at it today. The prosecution will likely rest today. Harvey Payton serves as our legal analyst in this and joins us. Harvey, there will be a motion, I suspect, by the defense to throw out the charges or dismiss the 3 charges against Don Blankenship. Do you see any, arguing that the prosecution hasn't proven its case in those charges, do you see any possibility that Judge Berger will dismiss any of those?
No.
All right, next thing. Will there be, when the defense begins, will it be we got something we've been saving here, we're going to lay this on you and blow your mind, or will it be a methodical pecking away at the state's case?
Well, I think the defense, initially their position, I think when they came in here, was a methodical pecking away at the state's case. I would not be surprised if that outlook has not changed to a more crisp, shorter presentation. Now, that's
Why?
not to say, well, because at the end of the state's case, the government put on a case that I believe will have to be decided by a jury. Now, Judge Berger may think differently, but there are proven facts from which a jury could infer guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But for each of those proven facts and suggested inferences, I think the defense has done a really good job of developing through cross-examination a counterbalancing inference that's just as reasonable and it may be consistent with innocence or a reasonable doubt about the guilt of the defendant. And so if you're keeping in mind that the defendant wins all ties, the defense could rest their case tomorrow and simply tell the jury, you heard all this. You heard this witness say A, B, and C on direct and the opposite or a lesser degree on cross-examination. Do you believe anything here shows beyond a doubt? Can you go home and think that beyond a reasonable doubt this man is guilty of criminality? And they might well win. I would. They're going to put on some defense for sure. They've asked to put on some telephone calls that were Mr. Blankenship speaking to other executives in Massey and others.
Well, let's talk about that because the prosecution used a lot of those calls to try to show that Blankenship was hands-on involved and put profits before safety at the mine. But there's a lot of conversations. So clearly the defense has its own conversations, and it probably is Blankenship saying, asking questions or showing some concern about safety at the mine, right?
Well, that certainly would be the understanding. The defense wouldn't offer these conversations unless they said otherwise, and they've asked to have these admitted into evidence under an exception to the hearsay rule, saying that it's demonstrative whether the substance of the conversation is true And whether it is a fact, the fact that it was said is evidence of the man's state of mind. If he said to Chris Adkins, who was the chief operating officer, actually the chief mining official of the company, I want these, are you getting my message, Adkins? I want these violations down. Are you not understanding me? And the answer is yes. Yeah, boss, I understand what you're saying. Now, the fact that Adkins may not have performed adequately and violations may not have improved, I don't think the defense cares.
Right.
From the standpoint of a defense, it's just the state of mind of Blankenship that he wanted things to run safely. Because, at the end of the day, the jury has to believe that the man did something willfully criminal, that he broke the law. Not that he was negligent, not that he was a pushy person, not that he made impossible demands.
Or that he made a bunch of money or anything like that, but that he was willfully, criminally responsible.
Right. And there's no question from the testimony so far, there were impossible demands made on subordinates. There were demands that they excel in production and in safety. And those two things were incompatible given the manpower that was made available. Now, the question is that a crime? Is that a willful violation of the law, as opposed to a corporate business practice, which, while unacceptable to the broad majority of people, is not criminal.
Right. It's not in of itself criminal. Harvey Payton's with us, legal analyst. Tell you, Harvey, and you guys have done a good job breaking this down every day. I had a guy come to me yesterday and who listens all the time, says, Harvey, I'm sick of hearing about the trial. Stop talking about the trial. So we're not going to. We're going to cover it to the very end. But I think that's because that there is no Perry Mason moment in this trial. This is a slow burn for both sides. And so far, I think it's a really close call. Because you could, I really hate to say this, I'll defer to you, but you really could you could intellectually make a pretty strong argument today for either side in this.
Indeed, that's true, but that favors the defense.
Okay.
That, the defense wins all ties. I mean, what the government would like to do is they would like the jury to have heard telephone conversations where Mr. Blankenship says, you have to understand it's all about money. And he said that. It's on tape. And, our job is to run coal. And then they would like the jury to look at his compensation, and they would like them to look at the production figures, which went up. And then let's go over here and look at violations, which went down but not appreciably. And we can, if you put all those together, it leads to, well, it had to be an arrangement, spoken or unspoken, between him and his subordinates to maintain this production, even in light of willful violations of the law.
Yeah, somebody had to be responsible for all this taking place.
But if the jury sees, well, on one day he's saying it all has to be about money, and on the next day he's threatening to fire a division president because of the number of violations, and while revenues have gone up, what was happening with other coal companies at the time, while his compensation was high, how does it compare to Consol or Peabody or Arch? I mean, that was the cross-examination from day before yesterday. And, if we've got Mr. Blanchard who says, I never violated the law, I didn't conspire with him, I refused to enter a plea when the government leaned on me, so if you look at this whole thing in context, and I would think if the defense puts on a case, and they will at least to a limited degree, or they may pile on. They may just pile on 70 witnesses who will all say, safety was the key. We just didn't do a very good job.
Harvey, is it possible? Well, of course it's possible. What is the probability that after the instructions, which I'm looking forward to reading the instructions if we get access to those, because they'll be very specific. It'll be, if you believe these things, then this. If you believe these things, then this. So it really is a tremendous help to the jury try to sort through this. But how probable is it after all that and very specific instructions, there are members of the jury, and I don't know them, I'm not judging them, would say, well, I know one thing, that 29 people died, and he was in charge.
Well, that's the risk.
The old jury nullification.
Sure. I mean, that's the risk that is run by trying a man who he is, where he's being tried. Mm-hmm. And that may be a significant issue in this case. If this case is appealed, if there is a conviction, The case was moved from Beckley to Charleston. One has to wonder, as I sit and watch the trial every day, I have to wonder if this case were being tried in Martinsburg or Columbus or the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, downtown Philly. What would the prospects be for the government if you remove that wild card, which is there may be, you cannot tell what is in the minds of a human being. And these folks have heard about UBB. They saw family members crying in the front row during some testimony. They saw Mr. Ross break down into tears because he felt he had failed the men who were killed. And no matter how much the judge says that's not what Mr. Blankenship's being tried for, that's an elephant in the room.
And they may have developed over the course of the trial a profound dislike for Don Blankenship.
I don't think that's happened.
You don't think so? Okay.
No. I mean, one thing that his lawyers have done a really good job of doing is humanizing Mr. Blankenship they talk to him in the courtroom. And it's not like, out in the hallway. You can see Bill Taylor, the lead lawyer, and Blankenship standing around chatting casually. Now, there's a reason for that. That's just not done because they enjoy it.
So he's not like he's this ostracized figure that is
he wears cheap suits and he wears shirts and ties that don't necessarily match, and he's had the same pair of two-tone loafers on every day, and he sits there with his glasses on and looks like, he's just a guy. So
they've humanized him a little bit.
Well, yeah, his appearance is human, and some of the revelations, the fact is he has an office in a double-wide trailer in Belfry, Kentucky, which is right across the river from Williamson. And let me tell you, Hop, if you've ever been to Belfry, it is not the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. It's Belfry, Kentucky.
I got you. Listen, Harvey, I appreciate that. Thanks for the insights. I'll let you get down to the courthouse and observe what happens today. Shauna Johnson will check in a little bit. Harvey, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hop. Take care.
All right, Harvey Payton, legal advisor to us on this Blankenship trial. We'll be back.
Hi, it's Tony Caridi with a question. What can a video do for you? Well, if you're in business or part of an organization, let me tell you what videos have done for our clients at Pikewood Creative. Our commercials have generated millions of dollars in new business. Our long-form videos have helped capital campaigns raise tens of millions of dollars. That's what a video can do for you. If you have a need, then visit us at pikewoodcreative.com. That's Pikewood Creative.
Come on, man, we're going to be late. We need to leave.
Yeah, we need to hurry. Let's go.
Please slow down. You are entering a work zone.
Oh, man, they're working on the road. We're not going to make it.
You are approaching a work zone. Please slow down.
What is that?
It's just the GPS. Don't pay attention to it.
Slow down, slow down, slow down.
When you speed in a work zone, you are endangering your life and the lives of others. Slow down. It's the law.
Be a smart driver. Don't speed in work zones.
This safety message from the West Virginia Department of Transportation, Division of Highways, saving one life at a time.
You're listening to Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Gosh, cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
It's a lot easier when you have it on before you get pulled over. Click it or ticket.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Talkline presented by MVB Bank, your most valuable bank, member FDIC. Please welcome the Speaker of the West Virginia House of Delegates, Tim Armstead, Republican, Kanawha County. Tim, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Hoppy. Doing well. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you, sir, for coming on. So, two issues I want to talk to you about. The first one is, and we've talked a lot about it here, is the proposed cost increases in the public employee insurance program in West Virginia. Premiums are not going up except for retirees, but the out-of-pocket costs are going up because the costs have gone up. And you know, of course, that these public meetings, maybe you were at the one in Kanawha County the other night, that people are very upset about this. Their wages aren't going up, but their out-of-pocket costs are going up. So, two questions. One is, can and should the state do anything about this? And two, if the state should do anything about it, should it commit more state money to the program to try to ease the burden on the out-of-pocket? What's your take?
Well, first of all, and let me say, I understand why people are concerned about this. I mean, it does place an additional burden on our state employees and our teachers, and I can fully understand why they're concerned about it. But if we can step back for just a second, because I think there's a lot of misinformation and finger pointing and things going on here that I think it needs to be clarified what precipitated this,
sure.
what brought this on. And that is the governor has indicated that when he submits his budget for the upcoming fiscal year, that he's going to be his budget will not be placing additional funding to address this issue. So that will require, if we're going to move forward, even if the legislature were to go ahead and put additional money in, if the governor does not agree with that and doesn't buy into that, he has the ability to line out and veto anything out, which he did this past year with some of the things that we tried to fund through the budget in this past fiscal year.
So if there's going to be any additional state money put into PEIA to lessen its impact on the plan members, it's got to start with the governor, you're saying?
Well, yes, and I'm not trying to pass buck. I mean, the legislature will be a part of that mix, but let's be honest here. I mean, I know someone sent me a video of one of the hearings, one of the meetings, and we had the teacher union representative saying, the legislature has cut this, we can't let the legislature do this, and all this. And this wasn't even brought up at all during the recent session. So this is precipitated by the governor saying he's not planning to put additional money into this PEI. So that said, let's move forward. Where we go from here? Obviously, this is something we're going to take a very careful look at. It is going to be difficult, and no one should pretend otherwise, that it's not going to be difficult to find additional money to put into this fund. I am willing to look at that. I'm willing to look at the options that might be there for us, but you have to keep in mind that we have $250 million hole in this current year budget already that could possibly even be bigger. And I don't see that turning around for the upcoming fiscal year budget either. So to say that, well, let's just put some more money in this, we've got to determine where that money would come from, and it's got to sort of, for lack of a better term, stand in line with the various other funding issues that we have, such as fixing our roads, such as balancing our budget and ensuring that we have funding for the essential programs that we have to have in state government.
So Tim, would you consider, and I'm not saying I'm for this or against this, but it's one idea, would you consider changing the premium mix from 80-20, 80% state, 20% employee, to 75-25, which would raise the premiums, but that does spread out the pain, and then people on the lower end, even though the premium would be a little bit higher, they wouldn't have as large out of pocket?
I think that's something we would take a look at. I can't commit. I don't know what the impact that would have on our budget. And until I know that, I can't really say whether that would be something we could or couldn't do. But I think we're willing to take a look at the various options and sit down at the table and try to solve this problem. But it's got to be, I think everyone needs to understand, it's a problem that's got to be in the context of the overall broader budget picture, and it's not going to be an easy solution. Now, some say, well, I know we've had proposals, and of course, even Senator Kester is out. Well, we can't cut anymore. We need to just start raising taxes. Well, I don't believe that at all. I think we certainly have a duty to go in. I think there are a lot of other cuts that we can make in this budget. I'm not going to say I agree or disagree with the governor going in with the 4% cut that he's done in the current year budget, but I do think that there are cuts that need to be made, and I would like to see us do those more directed at programs where there is waste and inefficiency. But we're going to have to look at that, and that needs to be done before we talk about any type of tax increases. In addition to that, I think what's kind of missing in this discussion when they say these public employees are having a hard time making ends meet, and I understand that, and I am very sympathetic to that. And I think we have great teachers and great state employees. But when we start talking about raising taxes to offset this issue, we got to keep in mind where that money comes from. It comes from the pockets of working West Virginians as well, who are already struggling under the same challenges. So I don't think we can just sit here today and say, well, the solution is throw a tax on,
right,
and that will take care of it, and somehow we'll be able to put that in. We've got a lot of needs.
House Speaker Tim Armstead is with us, Republican, Kanawha County. And Tim, one of the ideas, everybody knows, Republican and Democrat, that in the back pocket for the last few years has been the possibility of raising the cigarette tax. It's 50 cents on a pack. Every year there's a proposal to raise it. Would you support or oppose raising the cigarette tax to help pay for any of the myriad needs that this state has?
Well, I would say this. I'm not going to say that I would support it at this point. I think as I said, I think that needs to be looked at in the context of the broader tax picture. And that's what we've been spending a great deal of time since the 2015 session looking at, is to look at all the aspects of our tax structure. Too many times in our history, we have gone in and we had a need, so we just slapped the tax on one thing or another. And we don't have a tax structure that really makes sense when it comes to the overall picture of what the general rule should be when we look at our tax structure is what is the least amount of money that we would collect from taxpayers in order to fund the essential parts of state government. So, and I think you need to look at that in a broad picture and look at what the impact of any tax increase or any tax adjustment will have. Let's just say, for example,
real quick, 30 seconds.
We just decided to do that and we didn't look at the impact. What if it ends up cutting the total tax collections in the border counties because people go across the state line to buy cigarettes and then they also buy their food there or they buy their gas there? We need to look at the impact of what any of these tax increases that are being talked about would have and look at it in the overall tax structure, because there are areas where we need to cut taxes.
I understand. House Speaker, I got to leave it there. House Speaker Tim Armstead, Republican, Kanawha County. Tim, thanks for coming on this morning. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Hoppy.
All right. Good to chat with you. We'll take a break and come back. Guess what they're selling? Guess what we're selling in West Virginia? This is Talkline. That's next. Talkline on Metro News, Voice of West Virginia. 10:30, let's get a news update. Check in with the Metro News Radio Network. Find out what's happening statewide this hour, all across the great state of West Virginia.
West Virginia Metro News, I'm Carrie Hudasek. There will be an important announcement today coming from Greenbrier Resort owner and gubernatorial candidate Jim Justice and United Mine Workers Association President Cecile Roberts. The two will be joining together to address the public in Charleston at 1 o'clock. In the next hour, the historic Sweet Springs Resort in Monroe County will be auctioned off by Joe R. Pyle Auctions. Marketing Director Jared Shin says they're expecting a large crowd this morning.
We'll probably have 50 to 75 people there, which is a substantial crowd for a real estate auction. In terms of interested parties, we've had conversations with over a dozen serious parties on this property.
Bidding will take place at 11 o'clock. Police in Bluefield have 3 people in custody this morning after shots were fired earlier this week. The shooting took place Tuesday night on Harry Street when the 3 suspects were in a vehicle. James Garrett, Scotty Jones, and Christine Keene were all arrested and charged with wanton endangerment. No one was hurt. In honor of Veterans Day on Wednesday, a Charleston group helped dedicate the Rosie the Riveter's Memorial Bridge sign at Horace Mann Middle School. Bertha Kernoot, one of the Rosies, says she was grateful for the honor.
I feel very thrilled. Finally, they are thanking us for what we did many years ago.
The Charleston Gold Dome Lions Club also gave a brief history of the Rosies at Wednesday's event. You're listening to Metro News for 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
Tom, we have to talk. How do you know my name? I am you, Tom, from the future. You're me? Yes, look, I came back in time to tell you, you have to play Mega Millions today. Our lucky numbers are coming up in the next drawing. No way! So don't forget the ticket. Oh, and skip the burrito for lunch. Trust me.
Get your West Virginia Lottery Mega Millions ticket today. Still just $1.
Friday's estimated jackpot is $200 million.
Please play responsibly.
There's something about football season in West Virginia. The air's a little crisper, the sense of Mountaineer pride a little deeper, and the Book Exchange is loaded with everything WVU. Fans from all over the state and the nation gearing up with the latest Mountaineer apparel and gifts from the state's largest selection. This is way more than win or lose. This is the pride of being a Mountaineer. Gear up at the place that understands what it means to be a Mountaineer. The Book Exchange on Willie Street on Patterson Drive and bookexchangewv.com.
It was 3 hours before fans of NBC meteorologist and Today Show personality Al Roker got to see him arrive at Yeager Airport last evening. Kayla Donathan is one of those fans and says Roker has become a regular part of her mornings.
I watch the Today Show every morning while I'm getting ready for work, and it's, they bring you the news, but it's lighthearted, and Al is always extra hilarious.
Charleston was one of Roker's tour stops as he travels to all 50 states and the District of Columbia in just 1 week. From the Metro News Anchor Desk, I'm Carrie Hudasek.
Talkline presented by MVB Bank, your most valuable bank, member FDIC. The Old Sweet Springs Resort has been around since we were part of the mothership, the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's in Monroe County. It's gone through a long history. It was built in the 1700s. It was opened as a health resort in the 1830s. The state purchased it in 1941, turned it into a hospital. It was a nursing home from 1941 to 1995. You got a big old historic brick building on the site. There's also 5 cottages that are on the site. Well, we've gotten to the point, which sometimes happens, that it's going to be sold at a public auction in approximately 1/2 hour. Joe Arpaio Auctions is handling the auction at 11 o'clock today. Jared Shen is Director of Marketing Operations for Joe Arpaio. He joins us on Metro News Talkline. Jared, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Hoppy. I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm fine, thank you. So give us more about this place. I mean, I gave a brief history, but there's a lot of history here to this place, is there not?
It's pretty incredible. Most people around the state aren't even aware of the existence of the Old Sweet Springs Resort, and I have to admit I was one of them. It's a pretty incredible property, and there's even historical evidence that it was designed, in fact, by Thomas Jefferson.
Do we know that, or is that the rumor?
Well, it's one of those historical mysteries. There is some circumstantial evidence that leads to the conclusion that he played a role in the design, but there's no concrete proof.
Okay. How long has it been abandoned?
It's been empty for approximately 20 years since the former nursing home closed.
Mm-hmm. And we know what happened. So who owns it now?
Well, it's a little bit hazy at this point. The former owner of the water bottling plant that's also on the facility passed away, and it's been in kind of limbo for the past approximately 2 years. We're working today on behalf of the substitute trustee to sell the property.
Okay. So how's this work today at 11 o'clock?
Well, we've had folks on site since about 8 o'clock this morning. We've opened the resort, all the buildings, the guest homes, the old bathhouse up for inspection, and we've had it open again since 8 o'clock this morning. And in approximately about 25 minutes, we'll gather together, read the terms of the auction, and interested parties will put their hand in the air to bid on the property.
Talking to us this morning, Jared Shen. He's Director of Marketing and Operations for Joe Arpaio Auctions. They're going to auction off the, what do we call it, historic, famous often neglected Sweet Springs Resort in Monroe County? I mean,
all of the above. It was certainly famous in its day in the 19th century. Its popularity has certainly declined, but it definitely had its day.
During its heyday, was it because of the waters there? Was it one of those places where people went to take the waters?
That's exactly correct. The bathhouse is known for its spring, which remains a consistent 72 degrees year-round. And it was believed, and still believed, that the waters have a medicinal quality to them. Many famous folks in history have visited the spring, including Queen Victoria.
Really?
That's correct, yeah.
Wow. So what kind of shape is the main building in?
Remarkably, for its age, the structure itself is very, very sound. Of course, the interior, been abandoned for 20 years, needs quite a bit of updating, remodeling, but the structure itself is very sound.
And is there a minimum bid today?
There is not a set minimum bid, no.
Really? So have you heard anecdotally of who has expressed interest, not individuals, but does some body want it, or does some entity, or does somebody want it to turn it into restore it as a resort, or to tear it down and use the bricks, or to do what with it? What have you heard?
Now, thankfully, most of the interest we have has not been in demolishing the property. From a personal level, I'd hate to see that happen. The interest has been really widespread because in addition to the resort itself, there's also the modern water bottling plant, which includes all the equipment needed to produce water and the water rights convey. So there's been interest from entities wanting to resurrect the water bottling operation. There's been interest from people wanting to turn it back into a resort and restore it to its former glory. And a lot of interest from folks wanting to turn it into a nursing home or even a rehab facility. It's been really widespread interest.
I hate to say this, but I didn't know about it. And I've been in
either.
West Virginia all my life, covered news every day. I did not know about it. Somehow that got past me. And I don't know why.
You're not alone in that, Hoppy. Most of the people we've talked to that are very involved even in the historical side of the state didn't realize this resort still existed or even existed ever.
Mm-hmm. Is there any appraisal value?
None that we were given, no. It's almost impossible to pull any kind of comparable to this property. It's so unique.
Yeah. All right, 11 o'clock today, the auction for the old Sweet Springs Resort in Monroe County. The original building there. That's the original building, right?
It is the original building. That's correct, along with the 5 guest homes and a couple of other original structures.
Yeah, and as well as the water bottling facility, right?
That's correct.
How many acres there?
Approximately 23.
23 acres. Okay. All right. We look forward with interest to see what happens today with that here. Thank you for coming on. Good luck with that auction today.
Thank you, Hoppy.
All right, man. I thought I would, something that historically significant or something that's been around, wow, I would know that. But I did not. I did not know that. At the old Sweet Springs Resort, Monroe County, being auctioned off here in 20 minutes. Now, when we come back, a Clarksburg City Councilman stands up at a national meeting in support of some things that he thinks are of value to West Virginia. And he gets shouted down because it's a national meeting, but we're going to talk about that next. And also, yes, I am going to get into what's happening on college campuses. And I'm not going to address this as, it's just a bunch of political correctness. I think there's something else at work here. I've been doing some research and reading about this. There's something deeper and, frankly, more insidious that's at work here than just political correctness. So we're going to talk about that just this morning as well. So stay with us. There's more to come. Also coming up, Nikki Izzo-Brown, coach of the WVU women's soccer team. They're ready to start postseason play. They're one of the best teams in the country. How will they do? Will they start tournament play tomorrow night? 1-800-765-8255. Email talkline@wvmetronews.com. Send me a tweet at Hoppy Kercheval. Text me 304-TALK-304. Email from Josh in Martinsburg. Hoppy, it's funny how the state can always find money to expand Medicaid, but can never find the money to help people who work for their health care. Josh says, my suggestion would be increase taxes on tobacco, alcohol, and soda taxes. After all, these things are major contributors to the state's health issues. Then Josh says that's where you could find the money to try to offset some of the increases that state employees are facing with PEIA. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Hunger, injustice, poverty. We see it, but what can we really do? Where is the hope? The hope is in you, and Catholic Charities West Virginia can help you extend hope, grace, and mercy to the most vulnerable in our communities. They're calling all people of goodwill to serve our brothers and sisters mired in poverty, burdened with disease and injustice. Join with Catholic Charities West Virginia and change a world. Visit CatholicCharitiesWV.org because the hope is in you.
It's the best, most listened to game day coverage of the Mountaineers. It's Metro News Game Day.
I just want to see West Virginia play well.
They don't need to win, they just need to play well.
No,
they
need to win. If they play
they
well.
They got to win the game.
Hold on, let Hunter talk, then we'll yell at him.
If they play well, they will win.
Brad Howe, go ahead and say it. Say it in the first 60 seconds
you
of the broadcast.
You just want me to lead off with it?
I want you to lead off with it.
This is a must-win for West Virginia.
Pre-game coverage of WVU in Texas starts at 9 a.m. this Saturday, right here on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
For generations, West Virginia hospitals have cared for our communities in every way, carrying the promise of help, hope, and healing. Just as our families have grown, so have our hospitals, advancing programs to improve the health of all West Virginians. They're the place you turn in your time of need for healing compassion and professional care. West Virginia Hospitals, generations of community growth for generations to come. A message from the West Virginia Hospital Association online at wvha.org.
This is Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
It's a lot easier when you have it on before you get pulled over. Click it or ticket.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Talkline presented by MVB Bank, your most valuable bank, member FDIC. Email from Dave. Hoppy, when you talk about PEIA, you always seem to dismiss the proposal that premiums be increased for retired employees. I'm a retired teacher, Hoppy. Do you realize that retired state employees can least afford to pay the increases since we never get cost of living increases or retirement pay raises? And what will be potentially even more expensive will be the increased cost of prescription drugs, says Dave. It's a valid point. Valid point. And I keep going around in my head on this. I am empathetic to, and I'm very blessed. I have a really good job. I have good insurance. We just redid our annual insurance plan, and you have a number of choices. But if I want the same coverage I had last year, it's costing more. I'm not saying that to say, well, what I'm saying is that everybody is facing the same challenges, but state employees, particularly who are on the lower end of the pay scale, and those who are retired, it's tough. It's tough. And then the easy thing is to say, well, you got to help them out. And I feel like we should in some way. But then again, the state is really facing a tough time right now, especially with the severe decline in severance taxes in coal and natural gas. So I don't have an immediate answer here. I'm just going to keep talking about the story so people know about it. Text Hoppy. So Armstead and Cole just roll over, fund the governor's budget, and go home. What great leadership. I got a tweet from Ted Bettner with the West Virginia Policy Center for Budget and Policy. Bettner says the legislature needs consensus revenue forecasting and to take the budget up early in the session to have real control, says Bettner. It's an interesting point because the budget's always put off until the end. They don't pass a budget until the very end, and then it's just done at the end. So, okay. But we're watching the PEIA story. We're bringing in all sides on this, and we're having, as Friesen would say, the dialogue. The National League of Cities had a convention recently in Nashville. They brought together representatives from cities all over the country. Now, at that meeting, they had a business meeting where delegates from the member cities voted on various resolutions. There were two resolutions that came up that had impact on West Virginia. And there was at least one representative there from West Virginia, Ryan Kennedy, a city councilman from Clarksburg. And Ryan Kennedy kind of found himself standing alone in the room when he stood up and spoke against them. The one was a Second Amendment resolution. The other one was about fossil fuels and greenhouse gases and green energy. And Kennedy, again, found himself pretty well alone, looking around, wondering who was with him. Ryan Kennedy, councilman from Clarksburg, joins us this morning. Ryan, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming on. So when in this national gathering of representatives from cities all across the country, when they came up with a resolution concerning the Second Amendment that called for universal background checks for all firearm transfers, including between parents and children, and you stood up, why didn't you just sit there and be quiet because you were going to be alone?
Well, Hoppy, sometimes you have to take a principled stand, even if you don't think you have the votes. You still have to take that stand because ultimately, I tell people all the time that deal with me on a regular basis that I can't shave with my eyes closed, which means every morning I have to get up and look at myself in the mirror. And to think that I did nothing while somebody passed a resolution to essentially gut the Second Amendment, I couldn't stand for that. And even if I had to stand alone, I stood alone.
Were you alone?
No, I wasn't. There were a few other people from other cities that actually did vote with me on the resolution, but unfortunately the majority voted the other way.
Okay, so it did pass. But I have to ask you, I don't know, from what I understand from what you told me, it was a proposal for universal background checks for all firearm transfers. And it seems to me, and Manchin talked about this, that why isn't it reasonable to have background checks if, for example, you're at a gun show and you buy a firearm and you don't buy it from a licensed dealer who would have to do a background check. You just buy it from me and I'm at the gun show. Why shouldn't there be a background check in that instance?
Well, it's a good question, Hoppy, and the reason is because I'm concerned about what happens to the data after the background check is run. If you have a universal background check where every single transfer has to be run through a government system, a universal government system, then you have collected data on everybody that owns guns in the United States, at least the ones that own them legally. Of course, it's not going to do anything with the people that do it illegally because they don't follow the law anyway. And so then, historically speaking, whenever you start creating a registry of gun ownership, it often leads to confiscation later. I'll give you a historic example. In Germany, following World War I, they had a democratic elected government called the Weimar Republic. The Weimar Republic, probably for very altruistic reasons, did a gun registration law in Germany, made every law-abiding citizen register all their guns. Unfortunately, that government eventually fell and Nazi Germany replaced it. On day one, when Hitler came to power, he already had the list of all the gun owners in his hands, and it was very easy for him to confiscate at that point.
Hey, Ryan, I understand. I mean, I understand a principled stand on the Second Amendment. I get that, but logistically, even if there were a registry, and I do understand the principled stand, but if there were a registry, it would be physically impossible for the government to collect 250 million weapons, though, right?
Well, I mean that's an argument that they may not be able to get them all, but they could probably get a lot of them. if they really put an effort to it. Like I said, I'm not necessarily saying that the government we have right now at this moment is standing at the door ready to grab our guns. What I'm saying is I don't know what the future holds, and nobody else does either, and I don't want the government to have such a list so that they can make an attempt.
I'll tell you what, hang on. I want to get back. You want to go to the anti-fossil fuels resolution in a moment, but first I want to bring in Shauna Johnson because they're on break at the federal courthouse in Charleston in the Blankenship trial. Shauna, good morning. What's happened this morning in the Blankenship trial?
Good morning, Hoppy. Cross-examination of FBI Special Agent James Lafferty continues this hour. This trial has really been characterized by long periods of testimony with witnesses looking at document after document after document, and that's been the case this morning. Defense attorney Jim Walls has been introducing a compilation of 14 previously admitted MSHA citations paired with the daily violation reports that went to Don Blankenship and others beginning in April of 2009. And the point they've been trying to make 14 times this morning is that Don Blankenship, even if he did review these daily violation reports, did not know the specific conditions of what was happening underground at the Upper Big Branch mine. Right before the break, the defense started to play some recordings for the jury, but there was an objection from the prosecution. There was a very lengthy bench conference, maybe one of the longer bench conferences so far. No public ruling from the judge before the break about whether those recordings will be played. But earlier in the trial, the jury heard about 12 recordings. Agent Lafferty says as part of his investigation, he listened to 1,600 recordings. So the defense is trying to get in some calls that maybe cast Don Blankenship in a better light.
Does it still look like the prosecution is going to wrap up today? Because the cross now could go for a while with Lafferty.
The cross is still going. I don't have any indications of how much longer the cross would be. If the recordings were kicked out or kept out, that would keep things shorter. But if the prosecution successfully argued to get in their calls, it would make sense the defense would be allowed to do the same. So we'll have to see.
Shauna Johnson at the federal courthouse in Charleston, the Robert C. Byrd Courthouse. Thank you, Shauna. Cross-examination continuing of the FBI agent. Let me go back to Ryan Kennedy, city councilman from Clarksburg. He was at the National League of Cities meeting in Nashville where there was a big gathering of representatives from cities all across the country and had a couple of resolutions. And the councilman from Clarksburg found himself somewhat alone when he argued against a couple of those resolutions. The other one was an anti-fossil fuels resolution, which supported the Obama administration's EPA actions on carbon-based fuels, particularly coal. It was a call to move toward green energy and away from fossil fuels. So, Ryan, certainly that had to get a burr under your saddle, right?
Oh, absolutely, Hoppy. I mean, my bloodline runs through the coal fields. My uncle is a retired coal miner, and many other members of my family and my wife's family both made their living mining coal, and so that's very near and dear to my heart.
So you spoke against it, so you stood up. I know you were alone on that one, probably.
Actually, I was not alone. There were a couple other people from other coal states that stood up with me, so I didn't stand completely alone. But again, the majority went the other way.
Yeah. So it is, and again, you took a principled stand, but it's a resolution. So it's a statement reflecting the majority of cities in this country. It doesn't have any legislative juice, but still, it's symbolic, I guess.
Yes, and what it's used for is all these resolutions, some of which are really non-controversial, are used to lobby federal and state governments to say, well, this is what the cities of the country want, and so this is what you should do for us.
Yeah, well, you should have introduced the do you want your electricity costs to go up resolution, because that's what's going to happen. But maybe another time. Hey, Ryan Kennedy, Clarksburg City Councilman. Ryan, thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, Hoppy.
All right, when we come back, we've got a lot to do. Just hang on.
Hello?
Susan, I need your help.
Sure, what's up?
I need a contractor, and I don't know how to find a good one.
Oh, that's easy. Go to the Home Builders Association of West Virginia. They have a list of all kinds of contractors.
How do I know if they're good? I don't want just anybody.
Well, do your homework. Are they licensed and insured? Check their references and look at what they've done. Do people like them? And most of all, be sure to get a clear written contract.
Okay, where do I find this association?
Go to hbawv.org.
PEIA.org.
That's it.
Your dreams built by the best. Contact the Home Builders Association of West Virginia for a list of professionals in your area. Go to hbawv.org today. This message brought to you by our marketing partners, Lowe's of North Central West Virginia, Brick Street, 84 Lumber, Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, ProBuild, SJ Needhawk, Valcon, Wincor, and West Virginia Housing Development Fund. The Home Builders Association of West Virginia. Go to hbawv.org today. Imagine a scale, and you're trying to balance it. Too much on one side, and it sinks, just like our state's economy. When jobs are centered on one or two industries, the balance is off, our economy sinks, and good-paying jobs disappear. West Virginia needs a variety of industries, including fossil fuels, small business, and high-tech jobs to bring balance. The High Technology Foundation works to bring those high-tech jobs here. Ask your legislator if they're helping the High Technology Foundation bring balance to our economy. From the West Virginia High Technology Foundation.
You're listening to Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
It's a lot easier when you have it on before you get pulled over. Click it or ticket.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Talkline on Metro News. Do not put off getting your DNR ID number. Don't wait. You need it from now on in order to check your game. Luckily, getting an ID number is easy. Just log on to wvhunt.com, wvhunt.com to get started. Once you have an ID number, you can check your Bucto or any other game by calling 844-WV-CHECK, 844-WV-CHECK. But get the DNR ID number by going to wvhunt.com. wvhunt.com, or stop by a licensed agent. Be back in 6 minutes. This is Talkline on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia. Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Talkline on the Metro News Radio Network in and around the great state. Hoppy Kercheval with you. J.R. Falls, our producer. And Matt Sunday handling the video stream. You can watch us on Metro News TV at wvmetronews.com. Phone number 1-800-765-8255. Email talkline at wvmetronews.com. Tweet me at Hoppy Kercheval. Text me 304-TALK-304. So the latest college campus dust-up is at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York. There was a walkout there yesterday. We're here. We demand change, says the protesters. They claim injustices on behalf of students of color, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll get more into that in just a minute. But I wanted to step back and take kind of a macro view of this with Gene Polzinski. Gene Polzinski is with the First Amendment Center in Washington, D.C., joins us on Metro News Talkline, a frequent guest on First Amendment issues. Gene, good to talk to you again. How are you, sir?
Good, Hoppy. Good to be with you.
Thank you, sir. Gene, I think there's a couple things happening here. I don't want to look at this in a monolithic way. I mean, one is on college campuses, as anywhere, there are legitimate complaints about racism and bigotry, et cetera, et cetera. Then there are, I think, a whole host of sort of frivolous complaints. I feel like something's wrong, therefore I have been wronged, and you got to get the thought police out. And then the third part is there are consistent First Amendment issues here about people trying to tamp down speech that may be unpopular. That's my take on it from a broad view. What's yours?
Well, I think you framed it really well, as you always do. There are legitimate concerns there, and we can't lose sight of that.
Right.
There, racism and gender discrimination and threats and horrible images toward people who are women or minorities or ethnic groups. So, I mean, there's that. But I think we can't take a shortcut through the First Amendment to solve some of those problems. I think if you sort of boil away all these things, there's a belief that somehow if you prevent people from speaking about issues, or if you eliminate these sometimes very vulgar and terribly offensive, and at times even sense of threatening language, that somehow that will deal with the problem. And really, the root cause is much deeper than that. So, I think we just can't give in to a common, if you look through generations, a kind of instinct that says, if we just shut down somebody talking about it, the idea behind it goes away, and to the great sorrow many times of fixing things in our society, that doesn't happen. Ideas don't die just because we suppress one way of speaking about them.
Yeah, ideas die ultimately because they're bad ideas or they're defeated by logic or reason.
That's that marketplace of ideas
Right.
that the founders had faith in. They had two kinds of faith. I think they had faith that, first of all, it was better to let us to have more speech than less, and secondly, I think with more speech came better understanding, and that would help solve the problems. The real dilemma there is that it takes time for that. We saw that in the Civil Rights Movement, for example. It took decades to really address that. But John Lewis, the Civil Rights pioneer, had a great thought, and he's mentioned this many times when he's visited the museum here, that without a free press, for example, to really touch the conscience of the nation and the ability to organize and to demonstrate without free speech. With respect to the press, for example, the movement would have been a bird without wings. And I think that says something about the freely expressed, accurate kind of reporting that the press can do, and then the companion to that is the rest of the freedoms of the First Amendment that let us talk about these problems, and as the founders wished that we would. Gene
Polzinski is with us from the First Amendment Center at the Museum in Washington, D.C., and the thing's kind of resolved itself, but the whole incident that everybody's seen of the photographer trying to get access to the quote-unquote safe area at the University of Missouri campus, and the professor of communications, not journalism, but communications, so let's get some muscle over here and run this guy out. Now, she resigned, and she resigned and apologized to the guy, kind of a half-hearted apology. Like I said, I used the wrong strategy. But this is in a public area, and a guy doing his job, and then you have somebody in the communications department trying to shut the guy down. It was absurd.
I did a column today about this, and I said there was more irony in that moment than in about a week of daily shows. I mean, it was. You have a professor of communication, silence communication. You have somebody who has a courtesy appointment in the School of Journalism throwing a journalist out of an area. You're in public spaces with people saying not only get the photographer out of here, but other incidents on that same video where people were saying you need our permission to take our picture. And it points out something you and I have talked a lot about, is just the nation doesn't really study First Amendment freedoms because we assume they'll be there. But in these kind of crises, we're really ill-prepared to say, what are our rights, what are the rights of others? That photographer was phenomenal.
Yeah, he was.
Photographer
He really was.
who kept saying the same First Amendment that gives you the right to be here also gives me the right to be here. And he did it in such a calm way after being, frankly, pretty provoked. That I thought it spoke well about the training he got and his attitude and really his approach to of being a member of a free press.
Yeah, I thought he showed remarkable restraint, continued to try to do his job. Meanwhile, people start pushing him back, and they're saying really childish things like, "Well, I can't help it if I'm being pushed," or "I'm just walking up against it." I thought, it was sad. It was sad because it shows, and not that anybody has to be a scholar of the Constitution, but you would think at a college level somebody would have a fundamental understanding of the rights guaranteed by the First Amendment. So, but
today colleges should be the place that push back against an increasingly polarized life and the ability of all of us to live in, the sort of, I think somebody's called them thought bubbles on the internet, where we only look at the apps and the websites and Twitter feeds of people who we agree with us, and it sort of reinforces our own views. Universities should be at the forefront of saying, you're going to come here and hear things that you haven't heard or that might offend you. Obviously they can't rise to the threat of a level of a physical threat, but you may be uncomfortable. And that's part of, again, what I've often quoted, an opinion by Justice Jackson in the 40s, which I call the contrarian theory of the First Amendment. Sometimes you need to hear stuff that makes you mad, if only to be motivated and better prepared to argue against it.
Right.
And therein, the solution to speech you don't like is more speech and not less.
Yeah, Gene Polzinski's with us with the First Amendment Center at Museum. And what worries me is about all this is that we have that this is happening on college campuses. This is, as you said, this is happening at places which we traditionally think go to college and hear all the different ideas and sort through them. And now you're seeing this movement to really limit, not just limit speech, but limit ideas, and this whole philosophy that if somebody is offended or it makes somebody feel a certain way, not critical thinking, but it makes somebody feel a certain way. It could be a microaggression and needs to be shut down. Now you're talking about a danger zone, I think.
I think you are, and again, when we talk about violence against women, when we talk about racism and bigotry, those are serious issues, and there are groups in our society that have been targeted, that may still be being targeted. Certainly, make a good case for still being targeted, but let's deal with those issues and not in a way that stops people from exchanging ideas in an open fashion, from having discussions without the fear that they might use a word or a phrase that produces a trigger kind of reaction suddenly and becomes the focal point of the discussion instead of the original problem. I think that one thing that we ought not to dismiss these things. It's just simply as out of hand, as you said at the opening, because there are issues here. And for example, when those people were said, we need a safe space from the media, and that we can't trust the media to give an accurate accounting, in effect. So we need a safe space away from you. My instincts first were to say, "Oh, come on," and then I thought, "Well, wait a minute, though." I remember a time when civil rights marchers were called every name but adjective, but civil rights workers, and they were done that in a great many papers. So let's, there's a point for self-reflection too. I don't think we should just cave in. Yeah. But let's take a little self-reflection as media and say, wait a minute, why wouldn't people trust us? And, are we spending too much time on the Kardashians and not enough time on racism? Okay, maybe that's a legitimate criticism. Frankly, that's one I've already made. But let's take it for what it's worth. But I think that, again, as you said so well in the opening, the point of this is really defending free speech and the right of all of us to communicate and not do so with intimidation.
But Gene, what you just said about the media looking at itself in all this is really important too, because that defines critical thinking. Well, wait a minute. Okay, they say this, so let's look at this and see if there's any truth to this. And that's what critical thinking is all about. Instead of, well, that makes me mad, therefore I'm going to do this.
Exactly, and I think again, to go back to the 50s, which I looked at this and I thought how ironic that civil rights workers would invite the media in, and here we have people protesting over a lot of the same general issues who want the media out, or at least in isolated circumstances they want the media out. And I said, well, somebody in the 50s had to look at the news coverage and say, we haven't been doing this fairly, and then they pivoted, and it became a major help to the country to get the accurate picture of racism and bigotry. And excesses at times, frankly, as well. But we got a truer picture And so, let's not ignore what people are saying here. But I think the idea of, shouting to silence somebody, you're using the very First Amendment freedoms that you have to silence somebody else. That's not the way the First Amendment works.
Got it. Gene Polizinski with the First Amendment Center at the museum in Washington, D.C. Gene, always a pleasure. Appreciate your insights.
Thanks, Hoppy. Great to talk to you.
Thank you, sir. See, that's really, I think, good insights on what's going on, because I don't want to be just completely dismissive and say it's all political correctness, but I do think that I read a piece in The Atlantic. There's a really good piece in The Atlantic, The Coddling of the American Mind, and it's by Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt. And they make, I don't have time to make all the points here, but they say a couple of things. The current movement is largely about emotional well-being. Emotional well-being. More than previous movements, it presumes an extraordinary fragility of the collegiate psyche, and therefore elevates the goal of protecting students from psychological harm. The ultimate aim, it seems, is to turn campuses into safe spaces where young adults are shielded from words and ideas that make them uncomfortable. And more than the last movement, this movement, they write, seeks to punish anyone who interferes with that aim, even accidentally. You might call this impulse, and this is a great phrase, vindictive protectiveness. Vindictive protectiveness. It is creating a culture in which everyone must think twice before speaking up, lest they face charges of insensitivity, aggression, or worse. That is really an excellent observation of what's going on, because in these college campuses, about your emotional well-being. And if somehow that emotional well-being is violated in some way, then there is a vindictiveness, a vindictive protectiveness that is involved. You have to lash out at those who are responsible, even if they don't know that they were responsible for it. And it is rooted in emotional thinking and not critical thinking. I mean, critical thinking is logical. Critical thinking is, here's what I believe, and as a way to test that, I will actually look for evidence to the counter to see if my argument holds up. But instead, we're into this emotional well-being and emotional thinking. I feel, it makes me, when you do this, I feel this way. I feel you've hurt me. And how you can't even argue against that. Ithaca, now check this out before I break here. At Ithaca College, where the latest dust-up is, and from the stories I've read this morning, the only thing I can find is that they delayed in hiring a diversity officer, so they're upset about that, and also that there was an incident where there was some sort of forum and somebody said something derogatory about one of the speakers who happened to be black. And so that has spawned this whole thing about inclusiveness and the environment on campus and the emotional safety on campus, et cetera, and they want the president to resign. Now, I would just tell you this little caveat to the arguments being made. Last March, the student government at Ithaca College went so far, I'm reading from the piece in the Atlantic, went so far as to propose the creation of an anonymous microaggression reporting system. Student sponsors envision some form of disciplinary action against oppressors engaged in belittling speech. One of the sponsors of the program said that while not every instance will require trial or some kind of harsh punishment, she wanted the program to be record-keeping but with impact. Now, think about this for a second. I heard the student body president this morning interviewed on CNN. He's saying all the talking points about what's happening on campus. But it was that student organization, I don't know if this kid was the president or not, that wanted to set up a system of anonymous reporting of microaggressions that could lead to trial or punishment of individuals who are violating that. Now, what that is that's bordering on fascism. And that kind of movement, by the way, that kind of movement will implode on itself, because if you go that far, like the French Revolution started out as a good idea until they fell in love with the guillotine. Eventually, everybody will get guillotined. Because if you have these microaggressions and you take them as seriously as these people seem to be taking it, eventually everybody will commit one. So it'll implode. Everybody will violate it at some point. That kind of movement can't possibly sustain itself. However, There's a part of me that wishes it does, because the college campuses, in many cases, are reaping what they have sown. They have coddled these kids. Parents have coddled these kids. Everybody's been so concerned about their emotional well-being, and some of these campuses have been so far left on this stuff that's what it is now. It's no accident where it's happening. And so they fostered it, and they're going to have to figure it out. We'll be back.
Have you ever wondered just who are the Friends of Coal? Well, there are 50,000 West Virginia families who support the state's coal industry, and they look a lot like you. Honest, hardworking, good neighbors who want a future for themselves and their state. They're coal miners, housewives, school teachers, mechanics, doctors, college professors, pizza delivery guys, your friends. The Friends of Coal know and understand the importance of the coal industry to our state's economy. They know about the 60,000 jobs the coal industry creates in our state. They know about the $25 billion the industry pumps into our economy. And they know that without coal, our state would face an economic catastrophe. Come to think of it, that sounds like most West Virginians. Let Congress know you are a proud West Virginian, and you are a friend of coal.
Coal is West Virginia.
True to its motto, wild and wonderful, West Virginia is the third most forested state in the country for landmass and has 7 million more forested acres now than 100 years ago. The mountain state is abundantly blessed with valuable renewable forest resources, which naturally regenerate for future generations. Forestry is the basis for over 5,000 separate wood and paper products, creating millions of dollars in state revenue from business income and property taxes. A message from the West Virginia Forestry Association, WVFA.org.
The Jeep Celebration event at Northside in Summersville is underway. Never a better selection. Over 200 Jeeps available. The 2015s are leaving quick. The 2016s coming in just as quick. This is a great opportunity for you to save big. Get a 2016 Jeep Cherokee Sport with the Sport Package and Cold Weather Group. Save over $3,000. It was $2,825, now $24,990. Here at Northside Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Truck. Visit us online at northsidewv.com. Don't delay. Buy a Jeep today.
This is Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
It's a lot easier when you have it on before you get pulled over. Click it or ticket.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Talkline presented by MVB Bank, your most valuable bank, member FDIC. Just a tragic story out of Birmingham, Alabama. Eben Brown, Fox News Radio, following the story. Eben, what happened?
Well, a 26-year-old mother decided she wanted to go out clubbing, so she left her 1-year-old daughter in the care of her roommate's 5 kids, none older than age 8, and she and the roommate went out to a nightclub. While they were out, the 8-year-old son of the roommate decided he didn't like the crying and carrying on of this 1-year-old little girl, and so he started beating her. She eventually died. The parents did not come home till very late and didn't check on the kids until the next morning. It wasn't until 10:30 that they called police asking for help.
So the mother's charged with what, manslaughter,
The
right?
mother's charged with manslaughter. The 8-year-old is actually charged with murder, but he'll be entering probably the juvenile justice system and really be dealt with on a counseling level more than anything. The mother of the 1-year-old girl is facing a manslaughter charge, and now her attorney is saying that she should not really be facing any charges, that she is not responsible because she didn't do anything reckless. It was the 8-year-old that did something reckless.
No, he didn't really say that.
Something to that effect, yes.
That's.
I'll let you deal with that one.
I know the Birmingham police have seen some of the clips. I mean, they're just horrified. They don't even know what to say. They don't even know what to do with it. I mean, it's just.
It's something that most police agencies have never really had to deal with, and certainly the Child Protective Services, state authorities that are going to get involved here, really going to have a big case on their hands because, one, why did a mother leave a 1-year-old in the charge of children no older than the age of 8? And why did the 8-year-old think it was okay to beat the child until the child was quiet? What else is going on inside that house? So all of those children are now in protective custody. They are away from their parents while police continue investigating to see exactly what was going on inside this house.
Eben Brown, Fox News Radio, following the tragic and troubling story out of Birmingham. Thanks, Eben.
You're welcome.
All right, man. Can you charge an 8-year-old with murder? They did, but I mean, okay, yes. I mean, the 8-year-old beat the 1-year-old to death. 1-year-old, they found the 1-year-old in a crib. Child had been beaten to death, and the 8-year-old did it. But he's 8. He's 8. And the mothers are out clubbing. Okay, we're going to take a break and come back. When we come back here in the next half hour, WVU soccer coach Nikki Izzo-Brown. WVU women's soccer have had an outstanding season. They begin postseason play tomorrow as number 4 West Virginia takes on Duquesne. West Virginia ranked number 4 in the country. They are a second seed as they open NCAA play, 6 o'clock tomorrow at the Dick Delesk Soccer Stadium. We'll talk with Nikki Izzo-Brown about what would help, what would continue a great season. Also coming up, Paige Lavender, WVU graduate, politics editor of the Huffington Post. She's at WVU speaking this evening, and she'll join us as well. So much more to come. Plus, if you want the latest on the Don Blankenship trial, you can get that at our website at wvmetronews.com, wvmetronews.com. So we'll return here in 3 minutes. This is Talkline on Metro News. Metro News is the voice of West Virginia. It's 11:30. Let's get a news update. Check in with the Metro News Radio Network. Find out what's happening statewide this hour, all across the great state of West Virginia.
West Virginia Metro News. I'm Chris Lawrence. There will be an important announcement today coming from the Greenbrier Resort owner and gubernatorial candidate Jim Justice, along with UMWA President Cecil Roberts. Those two will be joining together for the announcement this afternoon at 1 in Charleston. Back to work today for the jury hearing the Don Blankenship criminal trial.
The 12 jurors and 3 alternates had the day off Wednesday for Veterans Day. When they return this morning, they'll continue to hear the testimony of FBI Special Agent James Lafferty, the lead investigator in the Blankenship case. He'll be under cross-examination from Blankenship attorney Jim Walls. After that, Assistant U.S. Attorney Steve Ruby will have some redirect questions. And once that's done, Ruby is expected to rest the government's conspiracy and fraud case against the former Massey Energy CEO. Now, that could come sometime this afternoon. After some motions from the defense to try and get some of the charges thrown out, the defense is expected to begin calling its witnesses to the stand. I'm Jeff Jenkins, 58 WCHS.
Some fans waited about 3 hours for NBC meteorologist and Today Show personality Al Roker last night at Yeager Airport, but he did finally arrive. Kayla Donathan is one of those fans and says Roker's a regular part of her mornings.
I watch the Today Show every morning while I'm getting ready for work, and it's, they bring you the news, but it's lighthearted, and Al is always extra hilarious.
Charleston, one of Roker's tour stops, says he's traveling all 50 states and the District of Columbia in just a week. You're listening to Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
Identity theft, the fraudulent possession and use of a person's private identifying information, typically for financial gain. You never think identity theft will impact you until it does. But you can help protect yourself. The West Virginia Attorney General's office suggests you check your credit score often, create strong passwords, and change them frequently. Monitor your bank accounts and credit card statements, shred personal documents, install security software on your computer and phone, and avoid public Wi-Fi connections. For more information on identity theft, visit wvago.gov.
Psst, Tom, we have to talk. How do you know my name? I am you, Tom, from the future. You're me? Yes, look, I came back in time to tell you, you have to play Mega Millions today. Our lucky numbers are coming up in the next drawing. No way! So don't forget the ticket. Oh, and skip the burrito for lunch. Trust me.
Get your West Virginia Lottery Mega Millions ticket today. Still just $1.
Friday's estimated jackpot is $200 million.
Please play responsibly.
Alpha Natural Resources is seeking the elimination of its health and non-pension benefits to more than 4,500 non-union retirees. The Virginia coal operator is now in Chapter 11 bankruptcy and says in a court filing those benefits cost $2.7 million in 2014 and they are a $125 million liability. They include life insurance and subsidies to reimburse retirees who buy their medical coverage through healthcare exchanges. If allowed by the court, the cuts become effective December 31st. From the Metro News Anchor Desk, I'm Chris Lawrence.
Talkline on Metro News. Welcome back. The WVU women's soccer team has had a tremendous regular season. They finished the regular season ranked number 4. They are a number 2 seed as they open up NCAA play tomorrow night against Duquesne, 6 o'clock at the Dick Delesk Soccer Stadium. Joining us is Coach Nikki Izzo-Brown of the soccer team. Coach, good morning. Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Did you think you all were going to be that good?
Well, I'm kind of sitting behind some great seniors, so they've done a great job creating and enhancing this environment. So, I wasn't going to limit this team, but of course, you never know how the season can go, and it's just been a great ride thus far.
Yeah, you got a great draw for the tournament. What are the expectations going into the tournament?
Yeah, it's it's definitely something that I believe our body of work throughout the whole season, allowed us to get the draw and get the tournament bracket going forward. So it's one game at a time. We're going to give Duquesne everything we got Friday, and then whoever's ahead of us the following week, we're going to do the same.
Yeah, you did defeat them earlier in the season, I think way back in August, 5-0. So you would, I think, have an advantage here tomorrow night. How much pressure do you feel? I know coaches always say, well, the next game, we put more pressure on ourselves than anybody else, but how much pressure, given the success of the regular season, does the team feel to advance deep into the tournament?
I mean, the expectation is to just every game that's in front of us, we're going to advance. I mean, obviously they want to get to a Final Four, but we've kind of kept it as small as let's just play 90 minutes of West Virginia soccer, and then whoever's in front of us, we worry about that the next game. But there is an expectation. The seniors have this expectation, but we always then bring it back down to just, controlling the controllables and making sure we're taking care of that game at hand on Friday.
Yeah, so you said West Virginia. What is, define West Virginia soccer?
Well, we're going to outwork everybody. We're going to put all sorts of pressure all over the ball. We're going to connect our passes, and we're going to make it hard for us not to put the ball into the net.
Yeah. Do you have to yell at them? I mean, you got the senior team, and you got, for example, I know Kaylee Utley, I think, is leading you all with 24 points. You got junior defender Kadisha Buchanan, who is really leading the way defensively. So they should know what they're doing by now. You have to yell at them much?
It's funny you asked that. I think I have such a good problem here. Sometimes this team enjoys themselves so much that I just have to bring back the focus. So it's kind of funny. You'd think that I'd be yelling at them, tactically. And of course, there's those moments that I, have to get everybody back in line and doing what their job presents. But a lot of times it's just making sure that we're getting the work done. But the seniors have kept it real, and so has Kaylee. But yeah, for sure, I definitely have to get after them and make them better and find a way to continually make them better. And that's been hard for me. We've only had 2 losses this year. So that's been a challenge, but, absolutely my goal and my dedication to this group is to make them better. So I'll get after it when I have to.
Nikki Izzo-Brown is with us, coach of the women's soccer team. They're heading into NCAA tournament play tomorrow night at Dick DeLast at 6 o'clock. Do you have, because you have those seniors, where you're in the huddle and you're saying something and they're completing your sentences or they're telling you things? Do you have that kind of rapport?
They'll be shaking their heads, and they know the gospel by now. I think some of them definitely. I know Kaylee Utley for Halloween. She dressed up as me, so I'm sure she could have done some huddle talk. But
how do you dress as you for Halloween? What was that look?
Well, the look is if you can find the biggest sun hat possible, that's me.
Yeah.
And put that on your head, and then put some sunglasses on, and always tuck in your shirt because that's old school.
Yeah.
So they always laugh at me because I'm always tucking shirts in. So I guess that's old school.
Oh, that's
so tuck
great.
your shirt in, put your socks up high, and you got me.
Yeah. What's the crowd's been like this year?
They've been behind us. I mean, it's just been tremendous, and we're hoping for a big crowd. Obviously, there's so much going on this weekend with WVU athletics, so we're hoping. Hugs has got that game at 7.
Yeah.
So if we could just take his crowd for an hour, we'd love that.
Yeah, because it starts at 6 o'clock. Does the crowd make a difference for you?
Absolutely. I mean, the girls feed off that. I mean, we have those students and obviously our soccer crowd behind us. It's so important that we hear them and they give that little extra motivation, but also let Duquesne know how much we all want to win that game.
Yeah, a lot of attention's been focused on Kadisha Buchanan, who anchors your defense. She was a finalist for the 2015 FIFA Woman of the Year Award. So she's getting a lot of honors. Can she keep her head in the game with all that's going on outside the game for her?
Absolutely. That's the selflessness of Keisha. She just wants to continue to improve and to bring this program to a new level. And she wants to win at the biggest stage, and that's something she's talked about. But, I've said this about getting fans out there, and she's just such a pleasure to watch. And it would be such a disservice if people didn't have an opportunity to watch Keisha play, let alone this team this year.
Okay, so tomorrow night, Dick DeLast Soccer Stadium there across from the Coliseum, 6 o'clock. So if you're going to the basketball game, go to the soccer game first. And 6 o'clock.
And they get free parking if they get there before 6.
Oh, really?
Free is in.
Oh, free is good. Free is good. As the 4th-ranked and number 2 seed West Virginia women's soccer team opens the 2015 NCAA tournament against Duquesne tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. Coach, thanks for coming on. Good luck in the tournament, okay?
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me, and hopefully we'll see you in the stands.
All right, thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Nikki Izzo-Brown, coach of the West Virginia women's soccer team, as they start tournament play tomorrow night, Dick DeLast Soccer Stadium. When we come back, Paige Lavender, who is a senior politics editor of the Huffington Post, WVU graduate, she's in town in Morgantown. We'll talk to her next.
Constantly checking your business checking? Switching to an MVB Bank Foundation business checking account makes your cash management easier with no minimum balance, no monthly service fees, up to 500 free transactions per month, and access to MVB where you work. Visit MVBbanking.com to see how MVB Bank helps you build a foundation for your business. MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC. Transactions are checks paid and deposited and ACH debits. $50 minimum deposit to open, 20 cents for each transaction over 500.
Hi, it's Tony Caridi. If you're in a business or organization that needs visual help, then let's get together and talk. For more than a decade now, those of us at Pikewood Creative have embraced the opportunity to help people just like you tell their story visually. Whether it's a video, commercial, animation, or motion graphics piece, we produce content that make others take notice. We help people increase their business and organizations better tell their story. If you need help, then contact us at pikewoodcreative.com.
Hello, I'm your neighbor.
Your sister.
Your son.
Your granddaughter.
I was broken, hungry,
helpless and hopeless.
Catholic Charities reached out to me in hope, faith, and love. They were there in my time of need. and they'll be there for you.
No matter how old or young you are, Catholic Charities of West Virginia offers hope, help, and love for all ages. Visit CatholicCharitiesWV.org and find your hope today. Catholic Charities West Virginia is an equal opportunity employer and service provider.
You're listening to Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
It's a lot easier when you have it on before you get pulled over. Click it or ticket.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Talkline presented by MVB Bank, your most valuable bank, member FDIC. Here in West Virginia, 2 great jackpot games you can play from the West Virginia Lottery. Powerball has drawings on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Mega Millions has drawings on Tuesdays and Fridays. The Powerball jackpot is $60 million. Mega Millions jackpot, $200 million. Please play responsibly. A couple of endorsements today in the governor's race. Jeff Kessler, Democratic candidate for governor, just announced he's gotten the endorsement, a labor endorsement, from the Bricklayers District Council of West Virginia. And I know why he's doing this now. He got it out early. Kessler receives first labor endorsement in gubernatorial campaign. It's worded that way for a reason, I'm sure. And he's been endorsed by the Bricklayers because coming up at 1 o'clock, Jim Justice is going to announce a labor endorsement. It's going to be the United Mine Workers Union. Well, what else could it be? There's going to be a joint announcement. They say it's going to be an important announcement with Jim Justice and Cecil Roberts. What else would it be? So the expected endorsement of the UMWA of Jim Justice coming at 1 o'clock, Kessler trying to get a little jump on that, saying this is the first labor announcement. The Bricklayers, okay, Bricklayers not as big as UMWA, obviously, but Kessler gets a little jump there, but Justice with a bigger announcement at 1 o'clock that he's being endorsed by the United Mine Workers Union. We anticipate that's what that announcement will be. Festival of Ideas tonight, David C. Hardesty Festival of Ideas at WVU. Earlier this week, we talked with Mercedes Schlapp, who's with Cove Strategies, formerly with President George W. Bush. Tomorrow, Michael Tomasky will be on. Joining us now is Paige Lavender. Paige Lavender is senior political editor of the Huffington Post, a WVU graduate, and she's back on campus. She joins us on Metro News Talkline. Paige, good morning. Welcome back to town.
Hey, thanks.
I have to warn you, you're on a college campus, Paige. So tonight, anything you say may in fact be a microaggression, and you may in fact be called on the carpet for what you say tonight, and whatever it is, most anything you say.
Yeah, hopefully I won't be saying anything too controversial.
It doesn't.
Happy to just talk about the basics of 2016.
Well, you don't know. I mean, anything could be a microaggression, so you just better stand by and have some security on hand. What do you want to say? I got questions, but what point do you want to make about this campaign, which has been like we always go into campaigns thinking, okay, we'll look at it in terms of the last campaign, and every campaign is different. Certainly this one is, particularly on the Republican side.
Yeah, for sure. And, I talked with Mike Tomasky about this just yesterday, and I think what's really interesting is, what the people are interested in. And a lot of what I follow in my job is looking at the issues people care about. I mean, right now, obviously, the whole Black Lives Matter movement is very big, gay rights, gun legislation. So, all of those things are topics that I'm following. And definitely when you say, to compare this campaign to the last one, I'm really interested in all of the stories about the polls surrounding this campaign, just because everybody put so much emphasis on those. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the last election, I think Herman Cain was leading at this time in 2011.
Right.
So, those are a couple of things I'm hoping to get across tonight.
Now, what do you think? Do you think that the media, and it's not fair just to say the media, because there's a whole range of media, spends too much time on the horse race and not enough digging down into stuff and weighty, heavy stuff, or not? Maybe you don't think that.
Yeah, well, like you said, the media is such a vast term. I think certain people do certainly spend too much time on the horse race part of it, but I mean, that's part of it. If there wasn't a horse race, you wouldn't hear about any of the other stuff, I think. So I think it's important to kind of focus on the race itself and then focus on the actual policy issues and the things that the candidates are fighting for and the things that they believe in. So I think you need a good mix.
What do you think that Bernie Sanders, who's fading a little bit, and Hillary's clearly established herself as the frontrunner, what do you think that Sanders tapped into or has tapped into?
It's his whole campaign is just so incredibly interesting. I think he really just was championing a lot of things that younger voters really care about. And I think he's very liberal, and he's doing what he can to kind of push Clinton to the left. So I think he kind of captured this audience of liberal voters who maybe were a little phased with Obama and some of the decisions he's made, when it comes especially to foreign policy and things like that. And he's really just had an incredible run. It's kind of fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Paige Lavender is with us, WVU graduate. She's going to be she works for the Huffington Post, senior political editor. One of the speakers on the panel tonight, beyond the hype and headlines, the 2016 elections matter more than you think. I thought they were pretty important anyway. I didn't think we had to be told they were more than you think. But Paige is going to be there tonight. Is Hillary Clinton a flawed candidate? Do Democrats look at her as she's ours and it's her turn, but she's flawed and we've got to push this thing across the line? How are Democratic power brokers viewing her candidacy?
Well, she's definitely not perfect. No one is. And I definitely think that people wish that there had been a little less controversy, surrounding her generally, like with the email thing. That's been a huge deal. Even lately, she's gotten some flack from the far left on statements like her stance on the death penalty and things like that. So I think that they do, within different factions of the Democratic Party, I think people have their own issues with her, but I definitely think she's probably the best candidate they have.
Who, on the Republican side, we've seen Ben Carson at least reach, equal, or overtake in some cases Trump. What's your long term on that? What do you think the Republicans do?
That field is so spread out that I don't know if I can even make a claim about the long term. I definitely don't think Trump is going to be in it for the long haul, even though he has professed that he's, going to be the next president. I think we'll see him leave the race at some point. I think he's just frankly going to grow tired of it. And then Carson, he's really attracting a lot of people right now. But what we have found based on polls is that people are really attracted to his personal story. They think he's very inspirational. If you look at his childhood history to what he is now, they love the fact that he's a neurosurgeon and he's very accomplished in that field and that he has a strong faith in God. But I think when it comes down to policy issues, I think people are going to realize he's a bit flawed, and I don't think is going to be the front runner for much longer.
In what ways has Trump changed the dynamic of campaigns, of this campaign or campaigns in general?
Well, he's definitely made it more of a show, hasn't he? I mean, if you just look back to him giving helicopter rides to people and him having that hat that everybody's wearing. I mean, I saw that everywhere, on Halloween, even as part of a costume, but still, he's just kind of making it kind of this very showy endeavor, more so than usual. And I think he is really trying to take a lot of the BS out of it, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's not exactly a realistic way to campaign, but for him to just say, I'm going to do this, and And, you know, I'm leading in the polls even when he's trailing, you know, Ben Carson in some of the polls. He's bringing this air of confidence to it that is almost unprecedented in a way. So he's definitely shaking up how people are kind of positioning themselves as people in the race, I think. But I don't know if that's going to have a lasting effect.
Paige Lavender's with us, senior political editor of the Huffington Post, WVU graduate. She's on a panel tonight with other journalists for the David Hardesty Festival of Ideas. It's going to be at 7:30 at Brooks Hall, 7:30 tonight, talking about the presidential campaign. What's your backstory? You went to WVU. How'd you end up at the Huffington Post?
Yeah, I went to WVU, graduated in 2011, and I had a really great connection in Washington, D.C. His name's Peter Cherukuri, and he introduced me to many, many people in the media world out here. And luckily, you know, the bureau chief of the Huffington Post is one of those people I met. His name is Ryan Grimm. He gave me an internship right out of college and saw some potential somewhere. So I'm still there, still trucking.
Yeah, you enjoy it?
I do. I like it a lot. It's a really fun, fast-paced, exciting job.
Mm-hmm. Well, welcome back to flyover country. You can settle in and, you know, and enjoy the event this evening. You got a good panel. Michael Tomasky's going to be on with us tomorrow. So, Paige, thanks for coming on. And it's good to have you back in town.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Good to talk to you. We'll take a break and be back. Stay with us.
Wait, this can't be right. If you bank with MVB, they pay you to use your debit card? Who approved this?
That's right. With MVB's Checking with Cash Back, we pay you to use your debit card. What's more, we give you 2% cash back on purchases when qualifications are met. Open an account online today at mvbbanking.com or visit one of our convenient local branches. MVB, your financial life made easy. Member FDIC.
It's the best, most listened to game day coverage of the Mountaineers. It's Metro News Game Day.
I just want to see West Virginia play well. If
they don't need to win, they just need to play well.
No, they need to win.
If they play well,
they got to win the game.
Hold on, let Hunter talk, then we'll yell at him.
If they play well, they will win.
Brad Howe, go ahead and say it. Say it in the first 60 seconds
you just
of the
want
broadcast.
me to lead off with it?
I want you to lead off with it.
This is a must-win for West Virginia.
Pre-game coverage of WVU in Texas starts at 9 a.m. this Saturday, right here on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
Trading in your business fleet or personal vehicle for a new one? Donate your used vehicle to Good News Mountaineer Garage and get the best tax deduction possible and the satisfaction of knowing your donation changed the life of someone in need. Good News Mountaineer Garage repairs donated vehicles and provides them to qualified West Virginia families, giving them access to employment, safe, affordable housing, healthcare, and other vital necessities, and putting them on the road to economic independence. Call 1-866-GIVE-CAR today for Good News Mountaineer Garage. 866-GIVE-CAR.
Every minute of every day, West Virginia's hospitals are working for you and working for West Virginia. With more than 43,000 healthcare professionals, West Virginia's hospitals are dedicated to serving the needs of their communities, even beyond traditional healthcare. I am Joe Litton with the West Virginia Hospital Association, and we are proud to celebrate our compassionate caregivers and their commitment to improving the health of all West Virginians.
A message from the West Virginia Hospital Association, online at wvha.org.
This is Talkline on Metro News. For 30 years, the voice of West Virginia.
There. Just 5 more minutes. Almost home.
Statistics show that 80% of auto fatalities occur close to home on rural roads.
Cops.
That's why law enforcement is stepping up rural patrols and cracking down on impaired driving. If you are over the limit, you are under arrest because drinking and driving don't mix. Remember, over the limit, under arrest. This message brought to you by the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
It's a lot easier when you have it on before you get pulled over. Click it or ticket.
At MVB Bank, we have one simple objective: to give you the very best of everything you could possibly want and need in a bank. That's it. We believe most people just want a really great bank with top-notch products like checking with cash back, nationwide ATM fee refunds, great CD and car loan rates, and more. Together with our awesome team and the convenience of state-of-the-art technology they can count on. It's no extra fluff, just good, honest banking. We're MVB Bank, your most valuable bank. Member FDIC.
Don't forget, all you hunters, you need to have your DNR ID number. It's easy to get. Log on to wvhunt.com, wvhunt.com. That's where you register to get your DNR ID number. You can check then your game by calling 844-WV-CHECK, 844-WV-CHECK, or log on to wvhunt.com or stop by a licensed agent. But you do need to have the DNR ID number. Don't forget. Tonight in the MEC, the Mountain East Conference, a game that you will hear on radio stations on the Metro News Radio Network and see at WVMetroNews.com at Metro News TV, is the battle for the bit. Fairmont State and Glenville State. Travis Jones, the voice of MEC, will be calling the action. Travis, good morning. Set it up.
Yeah, big one, Hoppy. 89th meeting between these teams, one of the oldest rivalries in terms of Division II in-state. West Virginia Conference and now Mountain East Conference opponents. And as you mentioned, battle a bit, heavy mighting bit pick that resides right now in Fairmont. The Falcons won this game last year at home. And however, Fairmont State has not won at Moore Stadium in Glenville in the last 5 meetings down there. And, you know, honestly, I think this is a matchup of two teams that have had good seasons when they needed it. Both were disappointing last year, and it's always fun to watch this Glenville offense and get a chance to see Ramon Lee, their outstanding running back, who unfortunately Hoppy's been banged up throughout the course of the year, so he's not had the type of numbers that I think most people anticipated for his senior season, particularly with that 400-yard performance last time we were down here in week 2 of the season against West Virginia Wesleyan. And it's a Fairmont team that has won 3 games each of the first 2 years under Jason Woodman, and they've got an opportunity with a win tonight over the rival to finish 6-4 and perhaps finish 4th in the Mountain East Conference.
Yeah, that game we saw earlier this season on Metro News TV, Lee had, as you said, 400, almost a record, 420 or 430 yards, something nutty. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was the Z2 record, Hoppy, and he just missed the All Divisions rushing title held by Samarji Pirine from Oklahoma by just a handful of yards in that game. So, like I mentioned, though, he's been a little bit nicked. Not sure his status tonight, but they've got a very good backup, Tevin Drake, a transfer from Western Michigan, who rushed for over 250 yards earlier this season against Alderson Broaddus. And coverage tonight will be on several radio stations across the state, but also video-wise on Metro News TV, correct? Yeah, absolutely, full HD quality, and we've gotten a ton of positive feedback from our broadcast this season. Looked really good last week in Fairmont and Shepherd. So we're real excited to wrap up the regular season here and perhaps expand our coverage into the postseason. Glenville versus Fairmont State, the battle for the bit tonight. And 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock? Yep, 7 o'clock, 7:10 kick. Yep. 7 o'clock, 7:10 kick. Watch at Metro News TV at WVMetroNews.com. T-Bone will be watching tonight. All right, thanks, All right, man. Thanks a lot. Battle for the bit. Hello. We got to run. Wow, a lot of stuff today. Busy show. Regroup tomorrow morning at 10:06, Friday already. Thanks to J.R. Falls, our producer. Thanks to Matt Sunday, handling the video stream. Keep up with all the news at WVMetroNews.com. See you tomorrow. This has been Talkline on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.